044.
This is Akashvani. In the program Money Talk, now we bring you a discussion on Made in India Steel, a novel initiative towards Atma Nirbhar Bharat. The participants are Udyan, Economic Analyst, and Sonu Sud, Anchor.
The government on Thursday rolled out an initiative under which steel makers will add Made in India labels to their products to promote locally made goods at the global level. The move is aimed at realizing Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Make in India vision, Union Steel Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia said. Udyan, warm welcome to you on Akashvani.
Thank you so much, Sonu.
Udyan, we'd like to know from you this branding of steel products with Made in India logo. What does this mean? Why has this initiative been taken? And how will it help our steel products gain credibility in the overseas markets?
I can't help but say that this is a remarkably smart move. Now, I want to draw your attention back to Intel. We know Intel, leading chip maker, and maybe 2 decades back, it started advertising wherever it used to communicate, it would say Intel inside. Now, what it does is, otherwise a chip, you cannot differentiate one chip from the other. But when you start talking about it, it starts differentiating your product from others. I mean, that is at the surface level. But of course, if the product is really good, then the differentiation really happens. And I think that's what the punt is. That's what the ask is. That's what the ambition is, that the steel produced from India should not be looked upon as steel, but it's something specific, something of a high quality, and depending on what kind of steel is being produced. And the idea is to, from a commodity, to differentiate it and make it. Sometimes what happens is, if you make it a country branding you do, Sonu, then what happens, it differentiates. Like for tea, this has been done. Some other products, it has been done. Now it's being done for steel, which I think is a high time that we do it, because there's enough and more of steel that's being produced in the country. The technology is pretty good. And we are on a very good expansion spree. You know, if you look at the numbers, we are our growth is far higher than the global average. So we are doing pretty well, and we have got good technology there and lots of new areas coming up which will require different categories of steel. And it's a good time to start this initiative. That's something I would like to say at the outset.
So you feel that a single brand identity for Indian made steel will represent not only India's strong manufacturing potential, but also give an assurance about quality to the consumers the world over. There have been, I think, 13 criteria on which Quality Council of India has collaborated with the industry to make sure that steel products which are getting this branding meet all those standards.
Yes, I would think so. And Sonu, let's also not forget that it's almost about 2 decades since Indian companies started to chorus. So what happens is, when you take over international companies and you operate in other markets as well, you get a sense of what's required. So today, thanks to all the acquisitions auto companies have done of international other companies in the West and in the East, they are aware of what is required to do well in global markets. And I reckon that it's no different with steel. And as we go along, we will obviously, when you try to do something, you're setting up the bar much higher. So what happens is, because of that, everything goes up. Everything that you're doing. So therefore, the infrastructure, the logistics, the inputs that are required, the power that is required, everything, you'll have to give it a lift. Else you will not be able to actually back that branding that you're doing. Then you're going to make it into some kind of gilded letter kind of a thing, as in Made in India. It has to be backed by really good manufacturing and good inputs and a good ecosystem. When you're raising that bar higher, you're actually trying to do that, and it's not a bad time to do it at all.
And the Steel Minister also informed that National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, has been engaged to design the labels. Made in India branding provides for labeling of domestic steel products with details of the product and a Made in India logo along with a QR code. So you feel that all the finer details have been taken care of so that the product has that stamp of government's approval and government's efforts to give a world-class product to the world.
Sometimes what happens is, let's assume a single company were to do it, it would be much tougher for single producer to do it. Let's not forget, steel tends to be a cyclical sort of industry. It sometimes it goes through its highs and lows. So when it's an industry-wide or a national sort of initiative, what that does is that you're constantly at it and you're constantly making that endeavor to differentiate yourself. Let's not also forget that, there are other players who make steel. In terms of countries, I mean, China makes 51% of the global steel. So there are other players who are doing it and doing it very, very well. So if you really want to go and give it a fight and compete, then you have to do that. And sometimes, you have to make these bold decisions to do it because you want to really, really get all the hands on the deck. So I just mentioned 51%. I mean, India is number 2 in terms of steel production. Now, if you're going to be growing at, we think we are going to be clocking about 6.5%. Internally, that's what we think. If you're going to grow at that rate, then our steel industry obviously has to grow. The construction is a big user, and sometimes we are not just talking about construction here. If India tomorrow has a understanding with any other country and wants to help them in their development, we're talking about helping out the global south. So then all the stuff that you're going to take in that project might be from Indian steel mills or Indian steel factories. In a small country, you will not be able to get that. So all this becomes really, really important. And as I said, that it's a good time to do this.
And the government's stress on capital expenditure, every budget we see, last few years we've been seeing the current government has been laying a lot of stress on capital expenditure, on infrastructure development, be it railways, roads, housing. So you feel that there is a lot of requirement of good quality steel within the country also. India has always had this, even in our growth rate being at such a high momentum, it is being said that our greatest strength is our domestic demand. So even in case of steel, that holds true, you feel? And this effort where we are labeling and branding steel products, this will ensure that the steel that is being produced not only for foreign sales but also for consumption within the country is of the best quality possible.
You're absolutely right, Sonu. There used to be a time when you and I, we were growing up. We are obviously very young, but when we were growing up, there used to be this whole term, export quality. Now, that euphemism or that mindset is a thing of the past. When you produce something, you have to produce in large numbers and you have to produce it of the global quality. So all these, even railways accounts for it. We are going to be trying and doing a lot of the defense manufacturing in our country. So that, of course, a lot of it requires composite materials. That also is a big user of steel. So all this, if you want to build up world-class stuff, manufacturing or infrastructure you're going to build, then you will need world-class steel. There's no doubt about it, and that's proven. I mean, any country which has become a powerhouse has got a great steel production infrastructure and companies. If you look at China, you look at Japan, you look at Germany, US, you cannot be a powerhouse economy without being a great steel producer. As the story goes, in China, their leader Mao Zedong, so taken by the steel production, he actually ended up making people produce steel in every house and every village. So, I mean, that was another extreme, but I'm just trying to emphasize how important steel manufacturing is if you really want to become a large, big and strong and vibrant economy.
There are very definitive targets which have been rolled out. Branding has been rolled out for select products of all major integrated steel producers, and 65% of India's steel products have been onboarded with common labels finalized for all product categories. And steel producers are progressively going to increase their product range with the Made in India label to cover all products by March 2024 as the first phase of this plan. And then this Made in India branding will be extended to the specialized steel plants in the next phase. So you feel that it's a very time-bound and result-oriented approach.
Sometimes what happens, Sonu, is you cannot wait for things to get to a certain size and do these things, because then you'll have to rework things and it becomes very, very expensive. You know for a fact that you're going to grow very fast. It's important to, embed these things within the system so that it grows, the system is used to it. Otherwise, what will happen is you will have grown to a certain level or at some point you will be there. And then you'll have to rework and tinker, which does become very cumbersome. It may appear surprising, but it does become quite cumbersome.
In fact, Mr. Scindia also emphasized on the efforts to build India as a manufacturing center of the world. And in fact, to that end, the production-linked incentive of a scheme of the government has been a big initiative. And a PLI scheme for specialty steel production has seen 67 companies signing MOUs, which is targeting an investment of rupees 30,000 crore and expected to generate 55,000 jobs. So you feel that these, schemes of the government, if we talk of PLI, it's not a subsidy scheme, it's a post-production subsidy scheme. So that also boosts manufacturing and gives a very positive and on the ground result.
There are second order benefits also, Sonu. If you're doing something in steel, it's a great advertisement for any scheme. Steel factories or steel mills are huge enterprises. I mean, people who have traveled by train or whatever, when a steel plant approaches, it's like a couple of kilometers of track. So everything about a steel plant is huge. From the furnace to everything, it's so gigantic. When you actually are being successful for any scheme or any policy for something like a steel sector in your country, then it's a great advertisement for that policy. And then a person who may not be in that particular area, so somebody who wants to invest in India doesn't want to invest in steel but somewhere else, but it becomes a great advertisement. You get that animal spirit, that confidence you get that, whatever they're doing it big. And sometimes, to punch above your weight, Sonu, you don't need a large number of success story. You need one great success story and people get inspired within the country or outside, and it builds that momentum. So sometimes you just need one or two or three great stories and then the whole momentum shifts. So I think that's another way of looking at. Of course, I'll be failing if I don't mention that steel is one area where PLI has done well. I mean, that's the sense I have. People may argue that it's not a roaring success or whatever success, but if you among the sectors where success can be listed, steel, I would say, because some of the chief executives are on record saying that it has worked for them or they like it.
And as you pointed out, that there are so many sectors, critical sectors of the economy which use steel as an input, be it defense, be it aviation industry, be it automobiles, be it construction. Of course, construction most of all. Steel traditionally was the public sector area. Public sector companies only were handling it. But now there are a lot of private sector companies coming in. So you feel that this kind of branding, which is bringing all the companies under one umbrella, that is also giving a stamp of quality to giving a sense of, you can say, confidence to the private sector companies, putting them at the same level.
I completely agree with you. The largest steel plant, if I'm not wrong, at the moment is a private steel plant. Although the numbers of public sectors would be more, and they do have a very rich history. Private sector in India also has a very rich history. The first steel plant private in our country was a private steel plant. So this is a brilliant place where the fusion is there. But as I said, it's like Intel inside. I mean, how would you say this steel from the other steel? You say that it's from a country or a place which has got high visibility, and then you back it up with impeccable quality, impeccable differentiation and specialty steels, as you mentioned, which are the areas, from automobiles to all kinds of, higher end automobiles and other kind of produce, you would need that.
So you feel that this kind of sector, which has got so much of critical importance for the economy, we gain manufacturing strides in this sector, that is going to help the entire manufacturing story of India becoming a manufacturing hub.
Absolutely, Sonu. One of the biggest challenges which the steel sector faces is logistics and input sourcing. I mean, you look at any report, any random report you pick up, there would be the number one or number two challenge. If you see any steel plant, any steel manufacturing, when it becomes big, around it there are new industrial townships, industrial activity, manufacturing that happens, and along with that an improved ecosystem happens. So if you got inputs are taken care of, the logistics are taken care of, I mean, in terms of taking it to the port or to the markets, if those things become smarter, it actually has downstream effects. Not only helps the nearby areas, but also the markets where they are catering to. So you sort one and you'll end up sorting, the ecosystem is going to benefit many.
So Brand India steel products will set new benchmarks for credibility and quality and strengthen country's domestic manufacturing and help the country move forward of Make in India, Make for the World. Thank you so much, Udyan, for joining us and throwing light on various aspects of this landmark development.
Thank you, Sonu.
You were listening to a discussion on Made in India Steel, a novel initiative towards Atma Nirbhar Bharat. The participants were Udyan, Economic Analyst, and Sonu Sud, Anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 928 909 4044.